Welcome to TWIN BUSCH Germany, your competent specialist since 1997 in professional vehicle workshop equipment. With a corporate headquarters in Germany and 9 other branches in 7 countries, as well as over 40 sales partners worldwide, we are one of the leading manufacturers of vehicle lifts, wheel balancers, and tire changers. Hello, we will now show you how to correctly assemble your TWIN BUSCH clear floor heavy-line lift. Your TWIN BUSCH clear floor lift is delivered in multiple packages. Here we see the main package with the bottom parts of the posts and with the cross beam that connects the 2 posts. Additionally, we have the packages with the post extensions, the motor cover, and the motor unit. Before beginning the assembly process, you should consider the position in which you will be placing your TWIN BUSCH lift. First, you will want to decide where you would like to position the main post, which houses the motor and control units. Keep in mind, the position in which you place this column is where you will be operating your lift. On this side, you will need some space for operation. Also from this side, you have the electrical connection, which if possible, is better from above. Open the package with the motor unit. You will find the instruction manuals here. Read the instruction manuals carefully before continuing with the assembly. Now we can remove the outer packaging from the package with the posts. Remove the crossbeam. There are more parts in the interior of the posts. Remove the lifting arms. Then comes the bar for the upper limit switch, followed by the cover plates. The package with the additional parts is found between the columns and the control unit. Lift the upper post slightly to relieve the bolts of the transport frame. Use a suitable lifting sling and, for example, a motor crane or a forklift. Remove the bolts from the transport frame now. You can now move the upper post to its future place of installation with a forklift or an erecting crane. The upper post is usually the main post, on which the motor and control unit will be installed later and from where the electrical connection is established. Remove the 2 remaining lifting arms from the second post. Lift the second post slightly to relieve the bolts of the transport frame. Remove the bolts and the transport frame. Take the second post to its future position. Open the package with the additional parts. Check the content of the package to make sure the delivery is complete. Unpack the motor unit. The next step is assembling the posts. For this, we will need the package with the 2 post extensions. To fix the main post to its extension, it has to be set on supports. Attach one of the extensions to the main post. The extension also has to be set on supports. Connect the main post with the extension using 8 bolts, with a shim, a retention ring, and a nut for each bolt. Repeat this process for the assistant side. Let's focus on the crossbeam. The crossbeam is made of 2 parts. We will now show you how to assemble the crossbeam using the TW242PE B4.3 as an example. The 2 parts are joined together using 5 bolts, each with a retaining ring, 2 shims and a nut. Tighten the middle bolt first so that the 2 parts fit together. Tighten one of the 2 sides next. And finally the other side. A few words about the next steps for the assembly. Normally, we would use the crossbeam as a way to measure the right distance between the posts. For this, we will erect the main post first and position it in the room. To minimize the risk of it falling, the post should be anchored immediately. Then the assistant side will be erected and aligned approximately. Before anchoring the second post, the crossbeam should be placed and fastened. Precautions should be taken during this step so that the assistant's post cannot fall. After the crossbeam is bolted, the alignment of the assistant's post should be proofed again so that it can be finally anchored to the floor. The posts will be erected first. Make sure that the post cannot slide. If necessary, use an anti-slip mat. You need at least 5 strong persons to erect the posts. Alternatively and recommended, you can also erect the column with a forklift or an overhead crane. Because suitable heavy-duty anchors are already installed in our hall, we will show you how to install them by yourself. Here we show an example of how to drill and fix the anchor bolts. Be careful to drill the right size and depth, and the right concrete thickness. If the anchor bolts are not fixed correctly, or if the concrete does not conform to the technical requirements, this could affect the stability of the lift. The exact technical requirements can be found in the instruction manual. To fix the anchor bolts, you do not have to move the lift. Drill vertically and take care of the depth. Be sure to remove all dust and debris from the drill hole. Drive in the anchor bolt carefully and straight, using a sledgehammer. Before tightening the nuts, check your columns to make sure they are correctly aligned and level. If necessary, you can level the posts with the delivered spacers. When the posts are level, tighten the nuts with a torque wrench to 120 Newton meters. We will now show you how to lift the crossbeam with the TW242PE B4.3 as an example. You will need a device to help lift the crossbeam. If you don't have a suitable lifting device, then you can also lift the crossbeam carefully using ladders. To fix the crossbeam, you'll need 4 bolts per side, with a shim and a retaining ring for each bolt. For the TW250 and 260 B4.5, you'll only need 2 bolts for each side. Additionally, to the lift you will need 2 ladders. Now you can fix the crossbeam. Let's start with the main post. In the case of the clear floor Heavy-Line lifts, 2 bolts are needed for each side. Before anchoring the assistance post, check the distance between the posts. Both posts should stand straight. Additionally, you should also check the rotation of the posts with a thread. A thread will be tensed from one post to the other for this. The thread should lay lightly on both posts. Here's an overview of the procedure. The alignment should only be done by turning the post on its own axis. The post can now be anchored. A few words about the steel cables. With the clear floor lifts, you'll find 3 pulleys for each steel cable, just like the other 2 post lifts with a floor plate. From our perspective, the steel cable at the back is connected to the right carriage and runs upwards over the 2 back pulleys towards the left side. Then, the cable is once again redirected by the bottom pulley and is finally fixed to the left side carriage. The second steel cable is fitted in the same manner from the left side carriage over the 2 front pulleys towards the right side carriage. The steel cables form a circuit which forces the carriages to be synchronized. The steel cable must be guided vertically straight from the carriage, from which it is fixed, upward through the post and then over its respective pulley and over the crossbeam. To fit the steel cable over the pulleys, these have to be turned so that their openings are parallel to the metal walls of the post. The cable is then guided downwards over the pulley and towards the carriage. Now we see the procedure with the second cable. We now guide the pre-mounted assistance side hose upwards through the provided duct in the interior of the post. The hose is then guided through the center hole at the top of the post and over the crossbeam. From there, the hose continues through the center hole at the top of the main post. And finally downwards through the duct inside the post. We'll now focus on the oil hose from the main post. The caps and the nut have to be removed first. Guide the lateral connection of the T-fitting through the provided hole in the post and fix it with the previously removed nut. The oil hose can now be connected to the T-fitting. The required bolts for the installation of the motor unit are found in the package with the additional parts. Place a bolt with retaining ring, spacer and nut on each of the two lower holes of the motor unit. Once the two bolts are secured, the motor unit can be carefully mounted on the post. Position the retention plate for the motor cover between the motor unit and the post with a spacer. Put a shim and a nut on the bolt. Tighten all 4 bolts. The hydraulic aggregate and the T-fitting can now be connected using the short hydraulic hose. Tighten the hydraulic connection of the motor as well as the nut of the T-fitting. Open the control unit and take the screws for its installation. To mount the control unit, screw the screws on the main post and hang the control unit on its place. Fix the control box with the 4 screws from the inside. Guide the cable for the release valve into the main post. Also guide the cable of the motor unit into the main post. Guide both cables into the control unit. Connect the release valve to the C-plug of the control unit. Please note, the following electrical installation should only be carried out by a qualified electrician. The exact wiring can be found in the instruction manuals. We will now mount the electromagnetic safety release system. First, you need to screw the 4 electromagnets on the exterior of the posts. Then, hang the catch from the interior and fix it with the included mounting bracket. Connect the electromagnets from the assistant side with the long Y cable. Guide the open end of the cable upwards through the duct. Then, guide the cable through the middle hole at the top of the post and over the cross beam towards the main post. Finally, guide the cable downwards through the duct and the main post and into the control box. Then, connect the electromagnets from the main post with the short Y cable. To mount the limit switch with the short cable, the arm has to be turned around first. The arm will then be fixed around middle length. Mount the limit switch with the short cable at the connection between the main post and its extension. For the installation of the upper limit switch, we start by mounting the contact bar. We need the included bolt with shim and split pin for this. The bolt is pushed up through the provided hole and it is fixed with the shim and split pin. The contact bar is fitted through the guiding plate, and it is then fixed to the bolt on the assistant side. Now we guide the long limit switch cable through the main side of the cross beam and then we mount the upper limit switch. To do this, remove the pre-mounted screws and mount the limit switch above the bar as shown here. The long limit switch cable is now guided downwards through the duct. Connect the two limit switch cables and guide the open end downwards and into the control unit. Connect the limit switch cable with the plug marked with an A. Connect the short or long Y cable with one of the two B plugs in the control unit. Connect the remaining Y cable to the second B plug in the control box. The control box can be closed now. To mount the lifting arms, we first prepare the pins. Mount the first arm and fix it with the pin. Install the other arms in the same way. Put on the lifting pads. Check the correct placement of the thread protection. To mount the covers for the safety release system, set in a screw lightly and then hang the cover from it. Then fix the cover in place. You can now mount the brackets for the extension adapters. The cover plates will be mounted now. First, screw the screws lightly into the provided holes in the post and then mount the cover plates from bottom to top. Make sure not to pinch any cables during this process. When all the plates are mounted, then you can fix them by tightening the screws. To fill the oil tank, the magnetic coil of the release valve has to be removed first. Fill the oil tank with hydraulic oil up to the mark. This is normally 10 liters. The magnetic coil can now be mounted again. We will now show you how to mount the motor cover using the TW250 as an example. Screw the mounting brackets on the main post first. After that you can put on the cover and fix it with the included screws. To mount the post protective cover, you have to hang the hooks first. Set in the hooks at the top of the post. Connect the lift and lift up the carriages a bit. Put the circlips on the pins to prevent them from slipping out. Push the cover through the carriage. As a practical tip, we recommend pushing the cover with a folding rule. Screw the cover tightly on the bottom of the post. Tension the protective cover lightly. Mount the door protectors. Mount the foot protectors on the lifting arms. The screws should be above. To conclude, we will show you how to adjust the tension of the steel cables with the TW242E as an example. The cable tension is necessary for synchronizing both carriages. Use two 24mm wrenches to loosen the nuts. We use a tire lever to tension the cables. Start with the post opposite the motor side. This side usually just needs to be adjusted once to get your base tension. All further adjustments are now made exclusively on the main post. Since the leveling cables are connected to one another, tensioning the main side now automatically leads to tensioning on the opposite side. Raise your lift upwards and pay attention to the clacking sound of the safety locks. The side with the hydraulic pump should click first, then the opposite side. Remember, before adjusting the tension, lower the slides to the next locking position, using the lock button on the control box. When the locks click at the same time, the optimum cable tension has been achieved. Now take the wrench again, and lock the upper nuts on both sides. This completes the adjustment of the steel cable tensioning process. The assembly of your clear floor Heavy-Line lift is thus concluded. Make sure all nuts, screws and hydraulic connections are tightly screwed before using your lift. We wish you a great time with your Twin Busch lift. Enjoy, and thank you for choosing Twin Busch.